We're going to come down to sit for today's practice as we normally do and just start seated. Whatever you might need to sit on today. My front hip flexor is a little tight, so I'm going to actually sit on one of my blocks. For the practice today, totally optional props that you might need would include a block and a blanket. That's it. They're not needed. They're not, absolutely necessary. But if you have them, they'll be nice to have. So go ahead and come down to sit however you'd like. And for me, that's going to be actually sitting on a block between my knees. I'm going to actually kneel and let my pelvis come down to rest. So, one of the things that I've come to sort of work with a lot in the last few weeks as I sort of work through this grieving process and this added sort of unique new experience of stress, I have started to find that I need to modify things in my own body and change the way that I'm practicing in order to sort of meet myself where I am. So today's practice is actually going to get you moving a little bit, but in a unique way that's going to help you connect back to your core. So we worked a little bit with this last week, but this week we're specifically going to be working on sort of learning to feel that core and especially core rotation without leverage. So this idea of like forcing ourselves into a box, especially when we're in a vulnerable state, whether we're stressed out, we're anxious, we're unhappy, we're grieving, whatever process you're in this moment, we need to find a way to adapt this practice to meet us where we are. So go ahead and come down to sit, whatever shape feels good. You can sit on a block like me. You can choose to take one foot up or one knee up and just let the knee point towards the sky. You can choose to take both knees down. You can also choose to just sit cross-legged on the floor. And once you come here, what I'd like you to do is just simply close your eyes and see if you can just start to feel the contact of your hands against your legs. And notice that cushion of warmth between the palms of your hands and the tops of your thighs. We talked a little last week about how we're all made of atoms. We're all made of tiny little particles that actually interact with each other, but they never actually touch. So if you think about it, there's always space between everything that we identify as us and everything else. And right now, what I'd like you to do is just send your awareness into that space, that place between your palms and your thighs where the space mingles, where you can feel the sensation of heat. You feel some measure of touch, but you also feel some measure of connectedness. See if you can narrow your focus down, starting with the palms of the hands. So let's first send our awareness down into the right palm. And notice the sensation of warmth, of heat, of touch in the right palm. And then from there, slowly draw your awareness out the 5 fingers. So up into that first knuckle, the first knuckle of your thumb, the first knuckle of your index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky finger. And then send your awareness out to the second knuckle of the thumb, the index, middle, ring, and pinky finger. And then finally send that awareness out into your fingertips on the right hand, just noticing the sensation of connection between your leg and your hand. And then draw your awareness into your left palm, a place where the undulations of your palm connect and disconnect from your thigh. Notice how in the space where your palm lifts, in that sort of arch of your palm, if you will, there's a little bit more warmth or a little bit more sensation of warmth. Whereas out towards the borders of your palm, there's a sensation of touch. Send your awareness up to the first knuckle of your left hand, your thumb, your index finger, middle finger, ring finger, and pinky finger. Next, send your awareness up to the second knuckle of that left hand, noticing the sensation of pressure or heat, touch, balance, lightness, whatever you might feel in those hands. What energy your hand is putting down into your leg, but also noticing the energy that's coming up from your leg into your palm, into your hand. And then gently send your awareness to the tips of your fingers of your left hand, noticing the connection between your thigh and your hand. And as you breathe, just start to spread the awareness into both hands completely. And as you notice that contact, go ahead and gently lift your hands off your thighs and take your hands together at heart center, palms facing one another, like we're going to do sort of a closing to the class. But instead of doing a closing to the class, what I'd like you to do is just start to rub the palms lightly together, just creating a little bit of heat, a little bit of warmth, a little bit of friction. And continue to breathe and notice that as you rub, the sensation of warmth and heat begins to build. And once you've taken a few moments just to rub your hands together, take the palms of your hands over your eyes, letting that heat radiate from your palms to your eyes, your eyebrows, your eye sockets, and just notice the energy of heat there. And then lower your palms down to your heart and allow your hands to stack against your chest, right against the sternum, maybe giving a little pressure. Imagining as you're breathing that you're breathing up into those palms. And then finally, take your hands to your rib cage, right below your chest, so right around the low ribs, right above your belly button. And place the palms of your hands against your rib cage and just notice the warmth of the heat from your hands passing from your hands into your core, into your belly. And then gently release, take your hands back down to your thighs. And from here you can gently lift your head out from your chest and lightly lift open your eyes. From here, if you're seated on a block, go ahead and come down to sit flat on the floor, and you can place your block off to the side in any direction. And we're going to take the right foot in towards the inseam of the left leg. Take the left leg out long towards the left side. And if you've been with me a few classes now, you've seen this move before, but we're gonna do this just slightly differently. Usually we do this move at the beginning of class with cross legs, but this time we're gonna kind of open up through the groin. So once you've settled down and planted your pelvis firmly on the ground, thinking about sort of lifting up from that pelvic bowl, what I'd like you to do is take your left hand, reach over towards your right knee. So you're reaching across your body. And here we're not trying to pull, we're actually just twisting from the core and reaching out toward the outside edge of that right knee. Take your right hand, bend your elbow, take your right hand to the base of your skull and lift through that elbow towards the sky, leaning over towards the left leg. So taking a nice big long stretch, you'll feel the stretch on the inside line of your groin, the outside edge of your rib cage. Take an inhale here. And then on your exhale, Come back up through center. Release the right hand back down next to the right hip, and reach those left fingertips out towards the left upper corner of your mat. Just sort of taking a nice long lengthening stretch here. Fingertips come down, just tenting on the mat. Inhale, come back up through center. Take that left hand back to the right knee. Right hand comes to the base of the skull. Lift up through that elbow, like someone's tugging from the elbow up through the ceiling. And then exhale, come back. Right hand plants, left hand reaches, just stretching out that inner groin. We'll do that one more time. Inhale, left hand to right knee, right hand to the base of your skull. Lift through the elbow, point towards the sky. And then exhale, go ahead and release, come back to center. Bend that left knee. Take the left sole of your foot to the inside line of your right leg. And once again, just get those pelvic bones down on the ground. It's kind of hard on my right side, actually. I feel like my right pelvis wants to lift. Totally okay. I have a blanket nearby. If I want to use it, I can just slide it under that hip and prop it up. Take your right hand, twist from the core, reach across to your left knee. Bend your left elbow, reach your left hand towards the base of your skull, and lift up, reach up through that elbow. Dipping that right shoulder towards your right knee, rather. These crossbody stuff confuses me every time. Constantly getting my left and right confused. Take an inhale here. And then on your exhale, take that left hand down next to your left knee or left shin. Reach those right fingertips out towards the right corner of your mat. Inhale, come up through center. Right hand comes to left knee. Left hand comes to the base of your skull. Lift up through that left elbow. Take an inhale. And then exhale, take that left hand down, reach the right fingertips across and reach. We'll do that one more time. Right hand comes to left knee, left hand comes to the base of your skull, lift up through that elbow. Maybe you dip that right shoulder a little bit closer towards that right thigh. Take an inhale. And on your exhale, take that left hand down, reach those right fingertips out towards the edge of your mat. And then come back up to seated. Go ahead and come around onto all fours. If you need padding under your knees, feel free to go ahead and take that and just grab one of your blocks if you have it. If you don't, totally cool. This is just going to be more of a marker. And just place it towards the top of your mat. From here, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and come down onto your elbows. This is one of my favorite new ways to sort of do cat and cow. And just walk your knees slightly back so they're more in line with your hips. And what you're going to do is just really slight movements where you're lifting the crown of your head, lifting your tail, and then exhaling and rounding. So inhale, lift the crown of the head, lift the tail. Exhaling and rounding. And as you move through these cats and cows, you're dragging the elbows back towards the shins, towards the knees, and then pressing down through the forearms and letting the crown of the head move towards the mat. So just continue to do these moves. These are going to be really little. They're not going to be huge. They're not going to be really big like normal cat-cows where you have all kinds of mobility, mainly because your elbows are on the ground, so you have a little bit less mobility in the spine. Take a couple more little movements here. And then once you've done those cat and cow, go ahead and come back up to all fours. From here, what I'd like you to do is take that right hand, plant it in front of your chest, right in the middle of your chest, and then inhale and sweep that left arm up towards the sky. On your exhale, you're going to thread that needle, so drawing that left hand underneath the right arm and letting that left ear come down to the mat. From here, walk those fingertips out over your head. Take a breath. then exhale, go ahead and come back through center. Come back to all fours. Take your left hand, plant it in the center of your chest, and then inhale, take that right arm up towards the sky. Palm is shining brightly, so extending the fingertips. And then exhaling and threading that needle, reaching underneath that left arm, letting the right ear come down to the mat. Take a couple breaths and then walk those left fingertips up over your head, reaching towards the top. Take an inhale here and an exhale. And then walk your hands back into all fours. Now you put that block up here by your mat. I really like this move too, and you can do this optionally with a block or without. What you're going to do is come just to an easy kneeling position, so hopefully shins flat. If you need padding, get those padding underneath your knees with your blanket, or if this is too tough on your knees, you can always tuck that blanket right underneath into the folds of your knees, right behind your knees. If you're using a block, you're going to take that block on its middle setting on top of your thighs. You're then going to take your elbows to that block, press your palms together, and then come forward, pressing those elbows down into that block, squeezing, and then lifting the heart, lifting the head. So you're kind of getting a little traction in the spine. Go ahead and stay there if you have the block. If you don't, you can actually do this just with your elbows on your shins, or on your thighs rather. And this time you're just going to actually move your elbows out towards the tips of your knees and press down and lift your heart. So take a couple of breaths here. And then exhale, shift your hips back towards your heels and come to just a kneeling position just for a moment. We're going to do a little shoulder work here just to kind of open up the chest and the back. So from here, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and take your arms out wide. So like your wingspan is getting huge. Reach fingertips towards the front and back of your mat. And then go ahead and take that right elbow over your left. And your first kind of bus stop is wrapping those hands towards your shoulders. So you're just kind of giving yourself a big bear hug. So you can stay here, and what I'd like you to do is imagine sending that breath into the back body, into that space between your shoulder blades. If this works for you, stay here. If it doesn't, if you're looking for a little bit more, go ahead and lift the forearms so that the backs of the hands come to meet. This is sort of stage 2. And here, a lot of times we're told, get the elbows parallel to the earth, lift to the heart, right? Instead of that, what I'd like you to do is imagine broadening through your shoulder blades and at the same time pressing the forearms together. So there's a little bit of traction that's happening here across the back of the elbows, or back of the shoulders rather. And then unwrap your hands if you have it. And what I'd like you to do is go ahead and just try to separate your hands just a little so that they come to be sort of a V. And you're still driving those elbows together. And just notice how the shift of sort of energy of breath changes, especially in the back body. And then exhale and get wide. Reach the fingertips towards either side of the room. Take a deep breath. And then exhale. Elbows come to stack on top of one another, and we go to the first bus stop. So hands reaching towards the shoulders. It doesn't matter what you can grab. You can grab your shirt. You can grab, you can grab your elbows. You can grab your sports bra if you're wearing one. Whatever sort of works for you. And then once you have that, if you'd like to go further, you can go ahead and lift the forearms so the backs of the hands are pressing into one another. This time, again, the left arm is on top. And just breathe into the space behind your shoulders. And if you have your hands interlaced, uninterlace them, and then just slightly separate those forearms, driving that left arm down into the right elbow. Take a deep breath. And then exhale and unwind. Go ahead and come around to all fours. And from here, we're going to come into our first downward dog. So tuck the toes, lift the pelvis, hands press down into the mat. And here, just bend your knees left and right. Just kind of allowing a little bit of movement into the body. Take a couple deep breaths. And then when you're ready, go ahead and shift forward to plank. And exhale and shift back to downward dog. We're just kind of getting the body waking up, getting the body moving, inhaling and exhaling with whatever rhythm we want. So a lot of times I give inhale and exhale cues, but I want you to play around a little bit with it just to see kind of what happens, what your rhythm of breathing does. And we'll do 2 more of those shifts from downward facing dog into high plank. And then we'll come back to downward facing dog. And here, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and step your left foot in between your hands at the top of your mat. So you're in this sort of low lunge position. And then take your hands to the inside of your left foot. Walk your left foot off to the left side of your mat. And I'm going to turn around here so you can see a little bit. And you're going to turn your toes so that they're off the mat while your heel stays on. And then go ahead and drop that back knee. And if you need that block, go ahead and use it. You can use it to get yourself kind of up a little bit. Take a couple breaths here. And then what I'd like you to do is just start to bend that right knee and flex the right foot. So we're kind of stretching into the front of the hip flexor, the front of the thigh. And again, just breathing with whatever rhythm you want. Moving slowly, moving quickly. And then from here, if you have that block, place it off to the side. Go ahead and plant your hands back on the mat. Lift your back knee. And what I'd like you to do is just kind of walk your hands off to about, say, like 2 o'clock. And here, spin that back heel down and you're going to press your hips back. So you're kind of in this warrior 2 feet with like a downward dog upper body. Pressing down into the feet, pressing your hips back and away. You'll feel this stretch along the outside edge of your left hip and along the underside of your left thigh. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, walk back towards center. Drop the right knee. Wow, we just had some big thunder here. Oh my goodness. Go ahead and walk that left foot in between your hands at the front of the mat. Inhale to lift the right knee. And then on your exhale, go ahead and step that right foot forward. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. And then inhale, sweep your arms up and overhead. And exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale to reach up. Exhale to fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, plant your hands, step back, find your downward dog. So take a moment in downward dog. I know we just had that interesting little thunderclap here, something that doesn't happen very often in California, but if you're like a lot of my students and practicing in Texas or over on the East Coast, it's a pretty common occurrence. And a lot like life, you just kind of have to roll with it. So take an inhale here. And then exhale, and you're going to step that right foot in between the hands at the top of the mat. And then doing the same thing that you did on the first side, you're going to kind of creepy crawl that right foot out to the right edge of your mat, keeping the heel on your mat while you rotate those right toes out towards the long edge. So you're kind of half on and half off the mat with that right foot. Go ahead and drop that left knee. And then you're going to inhale and bend that left heel towards your left butt cheek. And exhale and just release it back down. So just a little bit of kind of rocking motion. Taking a few breaths here. Kind of moving with whatever comes up. Just noticing and playing with your breath. If you're feeling like, okay, I need a little bit of breath to movement, go ahead and do that and find what works for you. And once you've done that, go ahead and ground down through those left toes, lift the left heel, and you're going to walk your hands off to about, say, like 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock on your mat. And then here, press both hands down, press the upper outer thighs back and apart. Kind of a weird down dog shape. And then exhale, come back to center. Walk that right foot in between your hands, the top of your mat, and then step that left foot forward to meet the right. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale, reach up, look up. Exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale to sweep up and look up. Roll with the thunder, guys. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, plant your fingertips. Step your right foot back towards the back of the mat and drop your right knee. So we're kind of in this 90-90 position. And look back and find your block. And if you don't have a block, totally cool. But this is just more of like a sort of helpful target, like I mentioned before. So what you're going to do, you're going to take that block on its middle setting at the center of your chest. And you're going to press your hands into the sides of that block. If you don't have a block, you can simply take your hands to heart center and just do it that way. But I like the action of the block because it gives a little sort of physical sensation. Take an inhale here and you're going to press down into the front of that right shin. And then on your exhale, what I'd like you to do is from your heart, like you're trying to hold a screen at the center of your chest, twist over towards the left side. Just using your belly and your core. See if you can stay stable and steady. And then exhale, come back to center. And this time you're going to twist over towards the right side. So we're not just going toward the typical side, we're going to both sides. Exhale back through center. And then inhale over to the left. Just kind of like imagining yourself like one of those center stacks of a dishwasher or of a washing machine, like the old school ones before we had like the front loading ones. And just continue to sort of agitate, twist through the core, keeping pressure on that block or keeping equal pressure on both hands if you're in prayer. We'll do that just one more time. So once to the right, and then once to the left. And then exhale, come back through center. You can place that block down, frame your front foot, lift your back knee, step back, downward facing dog. Take an inhale here. And then on your exhale, bend your knees, look between your hands, and take a walk up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep your arms up and overhead. Then exhale, hands come back down to heart center. Inhale, reach up, sweep up. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, fingertips come down. This time step your left foot back, drop your left knee, untuck your toes, and come on up to sort of that 90-90 position. If you need to, walk that front knee back so that it is in line with your ankle. You're not actually leaning into that front hip flexor. So here, if you have that block, you can use it. If you don't, take your hands to heart center. Press down to the front of your left shin so you'll feel an activation into the front of that left thigh. Take an inhale here. And then on your exhale, go ahead and twist over towards the right. Press down through that shin, but twist at the same time. Exhale, twist back through center. And then gaze over the left shoulder. You may find you have a little bit more restrictive movement on one side or the other. Continue to sort of be that washing machine agitator, just rotating left to right. But here, whatever you notice as you move through this, just notice it. As I mentioned in my email about this class, this is really about connecting to the present moment. Whether there's thunder and lightning and crazy rain going on outside, whether you're like, I hate this move, whatever your sensation is, just know that this will pass like the storm passing outside. And then come back to center. Frame that front foot, step back, downward facing dog. Take a breath. Inhale here and exhale. And then inhale, bend your knees. Exhale, take a walk up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale, sweep your arms up, reach up. Exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale to sweep your arms up. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, fingertips come down, step back with the right foot. Now here, what I'd like you to do is spin that right heel down, come into a warrior two legs pose. So you can take whatever amount of bend into that front knee that you might like. And if you have your block, go ahead and grab it. And once again, we're going to hold it like we're holding a screen at our heart. Almost like imagining like you were x-raying your heart to be like, okay, this is what's happening here. And what I'd like you to do is go ahead and keeping that back foot planted, so we're not rotating the hip, is just twist through the core. So you're shining that screen towards your front knee, and then exhaling and shining that screen more back towards the back. Inhale to twist forward. And it can be very small. It doesn't have to be a huge movement. Exhale to twist back. Inhale to twist forward. And you'll notice that your right knee may kind of move in and out. That's okay. We're not sort of staying static in it, so it's not a sort of dangerous position. Do that 2 more times, moving with your breath. Just noticing what feels good. And then go ahead and take that block down on the inside of your front foot. Now, straighten that front knee. Take your left hand down to that block. Take your right hand to your hip. And here, just press down into the outer edges of your feet. So we're in a nice sort of supported triangle pose. And if you don't have a block, you can always use your shin. Really pressing down actively into the feet. From here, what I'd like you to do is go ahead and bend that front knee slightly. If you have your block, you can walk it out in front of those left toes. And then what we're going to do is we're going to come up into just a warrior three. I know it sounds super, super easy. Or rather, this is actually half moon pose. Finding a place on the floor where you can focus your attention. If you need the support of the block, use it. If you don't, you can just kind of hover, or you can always put your hand down on the floor, just depending on what you're feeling. And we're holding this for a couple more breaths. Whoop. And if you wobble, that's okay. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, bend your left knee. Plant your right foot. Find your warrior two. Reach fingertips wide. Take an inhale. And on your exhale, reverse your warrior, stretching through that left side. And then exhale, palms come down, frame that front foot, step back, downward facing dog. Take an inhale here. And an exhale. And then bend your knees, look between your hands. Take a walk up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep up, reach up. Exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale to reach up. Exhale to fold. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale, this time fingertips come down, step back with your left foot. Come into that warrior two shape with your legs. And when I say warrior two, what I mean is making sure that the front heel intersects with the back foot at about the midfoot. The back heel is rotated in slightly, or the back toes are rotated in slightly. Take as much of a bend into that front knee as you like, and just kind of settle into that shape for a second. Make sure your block is close. Go ahead and reach down, grab that block, or if you're just doing prayer pose, do prayer pose. And once again, take that block right to the center of your chest, like you're x-raying what's going on here. Keeping that warrior two base, we're just going to simply rotate our upper body towards the front knee and then away from the front knee. Just kind of almost flossing the hips and the core. And just rotating back and forth. Whatever breath works for you, just allow it to move. We'll take a couple more of these little twists. And again, they shouldn't be super big. And then, when you're ready, come back to center. Take that block to the inside of your front foot. Or if you don't have a block, you can go ahead and just ignore that instruction. Straighten that front leg. And you can either choose to rest your hand on that block with your left hand on your hip, coming into that same sort of triangle pose that we were in, or pyramid pose sometimes. These two get conflated quite a lot. Take a couple breaths. And if you're not using a block, you're just supporting yourself on your shin. Press down into the feet. Really press so that you're not actually just like hanging out, you're actually actively pressing down. Take an inhale. And on your exhale, go ahead, bend that front knee slightly, step your back foot in a little bit. Take that block out in front of your right toes, and you're just going to come into that half moon pose once again. So lifting that left leg so that it comes to the place where the left heel is in line with the left hip. I'm flexing through the sole of my foot, but you can try pointing. And we all fall down. It's all good. Wherever you are, just get back up. Take a couple breaths. And again, if you're not using a block, it's a little bit more challenging, but you can always get your hand on the ground. Whatever works for you. And then exhale. Go ahead and bend that front knee. Lightly land that left foot back down. Come into that nice warrior two stance. Bend to the front knee. Take an inhale and an exhale. And on your next inhale, sweep that right arm up, reach back, reverse your warrior. And then exhale, frame that front foot, step back, downward facing dog. Take a couple breaths in downward dog. And then when you're ready, bend your knees, look between your hands, and take a walk back up to the top of your mat. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. And exhale, hands come down to heart center. Inhale to sweep up. Exhale to fold. Inhale, sweep your arms up, bend your knees deeply. Come into a very gently gentle sort of chair pose. And here, what I'd like you to do is ground down into like the 3 points of your feet. So the 2 underneath your toes and the 1 nice heavy spot below your heels. Take your hands to heart center, or if your block's nearby and you want to do the block at the chest, that's cool too. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, and you're going to twist through the midline over towards the left side, keeping your knees and your hips in line. So what happens a lot when we twist is we want to drop our hip back, right? Don't do that. Imagine that your knees are connected and attached, and that your hips are going to stay as facing forward as possible. And you're just going to twist through the upper body. It's really small. Exhale, come back through center. Inhale at center, and then exhale, and do the same thing towards the right side. Just look down, make sure that your knees aren't getting out of alignment. So 1 knee is jutting forward and 1 knee is jutting back. Come back through center, and then exhale and fold. You can place that block down on the floor. Inhale to halfway lift. Exhale to fold. Inhale to sweep your arms up and overhead. And then exhale, hands come down to heart center. Look down, take your feet nice and wide. And when I say nice and wide, I mean wider than your hips. And what you're gonna do is turn your toes out and heels in. I grabbed my block because my squat gets a little pinchy on this hip, and I'm gonna actually use this underneath my pelvis as I go down. So if you have a block, awesome. If you don't, use a blanket, or if you have a great squat, just go all the way down. So what we're gonna do is bend the knees, lower the pelvis towards the mat, and then once you get to that place where you're like, oh gosh, I can't, I'm kind of stuck, you can go ahead and place the block down and sit on the block. Hands come to heart center. Take a deep breath. And as I said, we're working on twists today. But twists without sort of that cranking, without that forcing, because what I've found, at least in my own practice, especially as I'm like working on these sort of emotions that come up, twists really help, but they have to be done, for me, in my body, without this sort of like cranking leverage. So wherever you are, just kind of settle in for a second. And then what I'd like you to do is take that right hand down towards the floor. Maybe your fingertips come down. You can either take your hand inside your right foot, or you can take your hand out towards the toes of your right foot. Then from here, inhale, and you're gonna sweep that left arm up. But really what you're trying to do is not press down or into the leg. Like if I take my arm away, I'm not gonna unwind. What I wanna do is I'm using my core to twist. That hand is just down on the floor to sort of stabilize me. Take an inhale here, and then exhale, come back through center. Hands come back to heart center. And if you're doing this without a block, I'll show you what that looks like. I like it with a block. It makes me feel a little bit better. Since my heels come up off the mat, I'm actually gonna use a blanket underneath my heels just to kind of give myself a little bit more grounding. We're gonna go to the left side. So you'll notice my heart's a little bit more forward. I'm more sort of grounded towards the mat. I don't love this, but I can do it. So take your left fingertips down in front of your left foot, and then on your inhale, you're just gonna reach that right arm up towards the sky. I'm not leveraging my left arm against my thigh. I'm just kind of twisting. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, come back to center. Take one more deep breath. And here, actually, I am gonna have you press your elbows into your thighs. See if you can kind of lift your heart just a little bit. And then wherever you are, take your hands down to the mat. You can rock back and come to sit. And once you've come down to sit, go ahead and kind of rearrange your props if you need to. What I'd like you to do is we're gonna come into a little bit of Marichyasana, which is the fisherman's pose. So the way to get into it is Actually, we can start in cross-legged. So I have my left shin in front of my right. And if you'd like to just stay here to do this pose, feel free. You can just twist through and come into a gentle seated twist. If you'd like to sort of try a little bit more, go ahead and bend that left knee towards the sky, plant your left foot on the mat, and tuck that right foot in towards your pelvis. Then you're going to take that right knee and just slightly rotate it so it's more in line with the middle of your body. And then you can pick up that right foot and cross that left foot and cross the left foot in front of the right knee. So you're in this sort of cross-legged position, but everything's a little bit more compact. And here, if you have your block, you can use it. I'm going to use the block today because I tend to like to just like put my elbow on the outside of my leg and crank. I want to avoid that today. I just want to concentrate on twisting from my core so I can connect to it, so I can feel it. And you're going to take an inhale to get long, lift the crown of your head. And then exhale, and you're going to twist over towards the left side, so that towards that bent knee that's bent towards the sky. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, and this time, instead of just unwinding, you're just going to twist over towards the right, opening the twist. And then go ahead and go back. Close the twist, so twisting towards the left, towards the bent knee. And then opening the twist. Think of it as like sort of a massage for your internal organs. Just kind of using the muscles to twist instead of using leverage. And do that one more time. Come back to center. You can take that block down if you're using it. And then uncross your legs, or rather cross your right shin in front of your left. From here, bend your right knee towards the sky, plant that right foot. You can take that left foot, which is close to your pelvis, and you're just gonna kind of draw it around so that that left knee comes to point more directly into the midline, so it's in line with your heart. And then you can pick up that right foot, cross it over that left leg, and you may notice that the sole of your right foot lifts off the mat. Totally okay. Just the way we're built, it's, the shapes of our bodies. Do what you can. If this doesn't work for you, just switch the cross of your legs and you can do that simple seated twist using the same kind of motions. If you have your block, you can use that. Take it to heart center, pressure in on either side. Take an inhale to get long, and then exhale, twist to the midline over towards the right. Take an inhale here, and exhale and twist over towards the left. Inhale here, and exhale, twist over towards the right. You know the routine. We're just kind of going back and forth, and not using leverage, not using the motion of our elbow against our thigh to crank us around. Take 2 more opportunities just to do this kind of movement. And then exhale and come back to center. You can place that block off to the left or right. Uncross your legs. Plant your feet on your mat. And come on down to your back, however you'd like to get there. And then from here, just for a moment, walk your feet wide, let your knees knock towards one another. Just coming into that constructive rest shape for a moment. Taking a couple deep breaths. Got about 10 minutes left in class, so we're going to do a little bit of stretching and then we're going to head right for Shavasana. From here, go ahead and walk your feet back in towards the midline. Take your legs out long. Take your arms up high over your head, palms face towards one another. And then from here, what I'd like you to do is pick up your left foot and walk it over towards the left corner of your mat. Take an inhale here and just notice what the stretch sort of feels like in your body. And then From here, bend both your elbows, take your hands behind your head, and we're going to go ahead and bend that right knee. So your left leg is off slightly to the left side. And you can either choose to keep your head on the mat with your hands just resting behind your head, or you can choose to lift up. From here, take that right leg out towards the right corner of your mat, hover it, draw the knee in. Take your right foot towards the center of the mat, draw the knee in, and then take that right foot over towards the left corner and cross your legs at the ankles. You'll notice we're coming into sort of this, what's called banana shape. From here, you can keep your hands interlaced behind your head, or you can unwind your left hand, reach that left hand down along the left thigh, and then reach up through that right elbow. So you're curving over towards the left side. You'll feel the stretch across the outer IT band of the right side, the outer right hip, the ribs, up into the underarm, up through that elbow. And just reach those left fingertips down towards your feet as you're lifting that right elbow towards the top of the mat. Take a breath. And then exhale, you can draw your head back towards the center, interlace your fingers once again behind your head, uncross your ankles, and move both your feet back towards the middle of the mat. Just for a second, notice what you're feeling. Notice what you may notice from left to right. Go ahead and reach your arms up overhead, palms face one another. Your hands can rest on the mat or on the floor. Pick up your right foot, lift it over towards the right corner of your mat. Bend your elbows, interlace your fingertips behind your head, and then bend your left knee towards your chest. So you're lifting your left foot off the mat. Take an inhale here. And on your exhale, reach that left heel towards the left corner. Inhale to draw in towards center. Exhale, left heel towards the middle of your mat. Hover it. And then inhale, draw that left knee in towards your chest. Exhale, reach that left foot over towards the right side of your mat. Cross your ankles so that your left leg is on top. And then from here, you can unintertwine your hands from behind your head. Reach your right arm down, right hand next to your thigh, and then reach through that left elbow up towards the top of your mat. Slide that right hand down. See how far down on your thigh you can reach. Take a couple breaths. Notice what you feel. Do you feel that stretch along the outside line of the left leg from the left knee up to the left hip? From the crown of the left pelvic bone up towards the ribs, and from the ribs up towards the elbow. Take a couple breaths. And then when you're ready, you can bend that right arm. Take your head back towards center. Uncross your legs. Bring both legs back towards the middle of your mat. And just take a breath. And then when you're ready, bend both your knees. Plant your feet. Knees point towards the sky. If you need to do a little adjustment, lift your hips and let them come back down to settle. Go ahead and do that. We're going to move into just a little bit of stretching through the front hip flexors. So take your right foot and thread it behind your left heel. Let that right knee drop towards the mat. If that feels like it's too extreme, you can always use that block or the blanket and prop that right knee up. Just kind of depends on how your hips are feeling today. From here, go ahead. If this is enough, stay here. If you'd like to add more, go ahead and lift your left knee up towards the sky and reach your right hand towards your left knee. Just adding a little pressure here with that right hand to the front of the left knee. You'll notice you'll feel this stretch into that right hip flexor. You may also feel it into the outside edge of your right IT band. If that feels good and you'd like to have a little bit more, you can take your left hand, reach down, find maybe your toes, your arch, or your heel of your right foot with your hand. Take a couple deep breaths. And this looks like a super simple pose, but I am really feeling this right now. Take an inhale. And on your exhale, go ahead, release that left foot back down. If you have hold of that right foot, go ahead and release it. Take your hands back to your rib cage, plant your feet, knees point towards the sky, and just for a moment, notice if there's any difference from left to right. Next, pick up your left foot, thread it behind your right heel, close to your butt, and then drop that left knee off to the side. Again, if you need it, use your blocks, use your blanket to prop up the outside edge of that left leg. If this feels great, stay here. If you'd like to add on, come with me. Pick up that right foot, draw your right knee towards your right shoulder, and then reach your left hand towards that right knee. If you'd like even more, you can take that right hand, reach down towards your toes on your right or your left foot, your arch, or your heel. And once again, just breathe. That's all we're doing here, is we're just connecting breath and movement in order to feel our bodies. So often the first thing to go when we get stressed or when we are in grief or dealing with a lot of stuff going on, and I've noticed this in particular, the first thing to go is the connection to our bodies. And I mentioned this last week, but my partner Nelson will ask me like, hey, what do you want for dinner? And I have no idea because I have no sensation of what's going on in my body. I can't seem to connect to it. It's gradually coming back, but that's what happens when you're in grief or in stress. You just start to sort of disconnect from the world around you. And yoga and breath and movement allows you the opportunity to reconnect. Take an inhale here and then exhale. Release that right foot back down. Unintertwine that left foot. Plant both your feet back on the mat. Walk your knees towards each other while taking your feet out towards the wide edges of your mat. Come back into that constructive rest. Feel the connection of your back body against the mat. Take a couple breaths here. And if you'd like, you can stay in this shape. Or you can stretch your body out long and come into your shavasana. And as you rest in your shavasana, we're going to revisit some of the work that we did at the beginning of class. And with your eyes closed, no matter where your hands are, take your hands right to the base of your ribs, that place that we were twisting from in class today. Feel the slow and steady movement of your breath. And notice how that movement fills your hands and empties them with an evenness and a rhythm. Feel the warmth of your hands against your rib cage. And notice that connection of your palms to your belly. That warmth, that sensation, whatever may come up for you. When we grieve, when we mourn, we often wrap our arms around our core, like we're trying to hold ourselves together. And in this moment, it's okay to feel like you want to fall apart. But know that your hands are there to connect yourself to your breath, to your body. That you can still feel. That you can still connect to that place that lives within you, that place that knows. Breathe deeply into the palms of your hands. Feel the rhythmic, steady expansion and contraction of your breath. And then when you're ready, and if you're ready, there's no reason that you have to get up and move. You don't have any place to go right now. This is just your time. You've carved out this time and this space to allow your body to heal, to allow yourself to feel whatever feelings you might be experiencing. But when you're ready, if you're ready, slowly invite waves of movement back into your body, wiggling your fingers, maybe tapping them lightly against your rib cage, wiggling your toes, and taking a nice deep breath along with a nice long good morning stretch, reaching the arms up and overhead, reaching the toes long, allowing yourself to take up space. And then when you're ready, slowly roll over to your left or right side, whichever side feels best to you. Whichever side you're drawn to first. And for a moment, take a few breaths here. When you're ready, gently roll your shoulders more towards the earth and press down to sit up, keeping your eyes closed. Take your hands to heart center, and as we did at the beginning, just gently rub the palms of your hands together against one another, just creating a little friction, a little warmth. And once you've created enough warmth, go ahead and gently place the palms of your hands over your eyes, just allowing that warmth to radiate into your body, into your eyes. And take your hands and cross them one over the other and allow them to rest against the center of your chest at your heart. Then take your hands down to your ribs like we had both at the beginning of the class and when we were in Shavasana. And for a moment, just give thanks for this connection that you have. Notice the warmth of your hands against your ribs. Notice the breathing. Notice the very simple automatic responses we have to our environment. Because by reconnecting with those things that go on in our bodies on a regular and rhythmic basis, we can begin to reconnect to ourselves and come home from the places of grief, of sadness, of struggle, of stress. Gently lower your hands back to your thighs. Feel the weight of your hands against your thighs. Feel the warmth of your palms. And then when you're ready, bring your hands back to heart center and bow your head towards your heart. Taking a moment to simply thank your body for this process. We can't speed it up. We can't slow time down, but we can be present for it, and we can connect to ourselves in this moment, and in this moment. All of the love and light in me bows to and honors all of the love and light in each one of you. Namaste.